Hello, we're going to talk today about supply. So we've already looked at some things with supply, with um, the law of supply and changes of supply and what moves the supply line. Today we're going to look at more specifically costs of production. So if you're a producer, all the things that go into producing things. If we look at a couple of things, studying output. If you remember, a firm's goal, a firm is a business, right? Anybody who makes something and sells something is a firm. A firm's goal is to maximize profits. And as Michael Scott says, profits is a fancy word for money. Total revenue, we've studied that before. Revenue is how much money you bring in after you've sold everything you produce. So that's your total money. And then profits is your total revenue minus your cost. So how much money you brought in, subtracted, take out the amount of money that you spent on labor, supplies, whatever it might be, that's your profits. So some basic terms for setting output. We look at some other terms. We got labor, number of workers employed, right, or laborers. Output, how many goods are produced in a given time frame. So whatever, if we work for a day, how many units of whatever we're making do we produce? That's our output. Marginal product labor, the change in output from adding one more worker. So every time we add a worker, how much does our output change? How much do they impact that? That's our marginal product. Remember, marginal is always referred to we go one more unit. If we add one more, decrease one more, that's our marginal change. Specialization. So we'll see that in an example we'll look at. Oops, don't want that up yet. Specialization, workers performing smaller parts of a production process to increase efficiency. So as workers, you add more workers, they don't have to do the entire process from beginning to end. They get really good at one small part of the process, which means they become more productive. Another term, increasing marginal returns. This is all stuff that you read about in the book, just a refresher of it. Increasing marginal returns, the amount of additional output that comes from hiring more workers. So if we hire more workers and we have increasing marginal returns, it means we have more product, more output every time because it's increasing marginal. Every time we add one worker, that's our marginal. One worker, our product increases. You can also have decreasing marginal returns. So if you hire more workers, your output could go down. So we'll talk about why that is and see that in an example. Then we could have negative marginal returns. So the big difference between negative and decreasing is, you might go from producing 10 units to producing, 12 units. So, maybe you've only produced two more units is decreased. Well, we'll see that in examples. I guess I'll illustrate it. They'll look better. Decreasing doesn't necessarily mean you're making less than the when you had one less worker, but negative does. If we add one more worker, we're actually producing less. So we'll talk about why that is. A couple other quick things before we look at an example. Fixed cost. So these are costs that you're going to have to pay no matter what. Even if you don't open for business, you're going to have these fixed costs. That's usually things like rent or taxes, things that no matter what you do, you're going to have to pay that money whether you open or not. Variable costs are ones that arise or fall depending on how much you produce. So if you produce a lot, you use more materials, which means your costs go up. If you produce a lot, you probably have to hire more workers or they work longer, your costs go up. So those would all be variable costs. Might be things like utilities. If you use more electricity, that's a variable cost. You use more water, that's a variable cost. Total cost would be the sum of both your fixed and variable costs. Marginal cost would be every time you produce one more unit, how much did your cost go up when you produce that one more unit? So we look at our classic example, lemonade stands, right? So we're going to operate a lemonade stand. Let's, in this scenario, say our fixed cost is renting the stand. Say this is at like a fairground or something like that. So we're allowed to open up, or a public park, we're allowed to open up a stand to sell lemonade. They're going to charge us $30 a day to operate. So we're going to pay that no matter what. If it rains and we don't open, we're still paying $30 a day for the space. Our variable cost would be all the things that go into this lemonade mix: water, ice, cups, straws. So for this example, we'll say all this stuff adds up to, if we were going to divide it up, $1 per cup would be our costs. And then our labor, for each worker, we're going to be open for 2 hours. We're going to pay a worker $10 an hour, so it'll be $20 a day to work. So these are our variable costs. No, this doesn't count startup costs. If this is startup costs, I include the pitcher that we bought, like, for the hold the lemonade, the spoon to stir it. Oh, there we go. The spoon to stir it, the cash register, all that stuff would be one-time costs. I'm not counting that in our fixed and variable costs. This is just when we operate each day, this is what we are spending. So if we look at an example, and we'll see how things change. So in this case, we have no laborers, so no one's working, which means we have no output, and all these things are zeros. There's no marginal product of labor, so we haven't changed. Our fixed cost is $30. So that's our rent that we pay. No matter what, we're paying $30. We have no variable costs because we haven't opened. So our total cost is $30. No marginal cost because we haven't had a change yet. Our market price, this is what we're going to sell lemonade for, $2 per cup. It's going to be our market price. But we don't have any revenue because we didn't open, so it doesn't matter. There's a zero, so we're minus $30 if we have nobody working. We're going to lose $30. If we add one worker, let's say that one worker for 2 hours can produce 20 cups of lemonade, which means our marginal product of labor is 20. The difference between having no workers and one worker is 20 more units. Our fixed costs stay the same, but our variable costs have gone up to $40. The reason for that is because it's $1 per cup in cost, so it's 20 plus $20 for the worker. So that's our variable cost of $40, and our total cost is 70. So our marginal cost, the difference between here and here is $40. Difference between $30 and $70 is 40. So our marginal cost has gone up $40. Market price is 2. We make $40 because it's $2 for 20 cups, which means we're still negative 30. So we haven't actually made any money. We haven't changed it all. You might still argue that's beneficial to open, even though we haven't made any money because we're going to pay the $30 anyway. So we might as well get our product out there. People drink our delicious lemonade, and maybe they'll want to buy more the next time, or they'll bring more friends with them. If we have 2 workers, let's say that doubles our output. Having 2 people there, and imagine with 1 worker. If we go back to that 1 worker, they're doing the whole process. They're pouring the lemonade mix into the thing. They're getting a pitcher of water. They're pouring it in there, putting ice. They're stirring it. They're giving the person a straw, collecting their money, doing all that stuff. If we had a second worker, we can specialize a little bit. Maybe one person's in charge of pouring the mix and getting all the cups ready. Another person pours the water and stirs it, and then one of them does the money. But either way, by adding a second worker, we've doubled our output. So our marginal product of labor is 20 again. We went from 20 to 40, which means we've produced 20 more units, 20 more cups of lemonade. Our fixed costs stay the same, $30, but our marginal costs go up. $40 for the cups of lemonade, $1 per cup, plus $40 for the 2 workers, $80. Our total cost is $110. So our marginal cost has changed from 70 to 110 to $40 at $2 a cup. So $2 times 40, we have $80. We're still at negative 30. Still haven't made any money. So we got to figure out how we can make this profitable. If we had 3 workers, let's say that we're able to specialize to the point where we can produce 70 cups. We've gone up. We've gone from 40 to 70, and our marginal product has gone from just 20 to 30. So between 40 and 70, we've gone up 30 cups more if we have 3 workers. So this person's become very valuable, adding that 3rd worker. However they specialize in the process of making lemonade, it became very valuable. Our cost is still $30. Our variable cost is $70 plus $60 for the 3 workers. That's $130. So our total cost is $160. Our marginal cost has gone up $50 from 2 workers to 3 workers, but we've made $140, $2 times 70 cups, and now we're only $20 in the hole. We're still not profitable, but we're better off than we were. So we're better off than even if we didn't open at all. We had our 4th worker. That 4th worker, now we're really making this process specialized. It's really becoming efficient. People aren't standing in line waiting for cups. We're able to make them really fast. We make 110. So by adding that 4th worker, they're really valuable. We've gone from 70 cups to 110 cups, which means our marginal product of labor is 40. Our fixed costs stay the same. Our variable costs, by adding up the $1 per cup plus $80 for the workers, is $190. Our total cost is $220. Our marginal cost is $60, so we've gone from $160 to $220. At $2 per cup, we've now made $220. At least with 4 workers, we're breaking even. We're not losing money by opening the stand. So we're getting there. And you can see these trends. We don't have to go through them all line by line, but with the 5th worker, output goes up 60 units. So that's really specialized. However, whatever we've done, this is really making it an efficient process. Our costs have gone up proportionally with this. We've added more cups plus another worker, $20. So our variable costs have gone up, which means our total costs have gone up. But now we've made so many cups of lemonade, we are profitable. We've sold them for $340 minus our total costs means we've made $40. So we finally made a profit at 5 workers. So that's good. Should we go further? Should we add a 6th worker? Well, with the 6th worker, let's say they increase our marginal product labor by 80 units, which means we go to 250. And we can see all the way across, even though our variable costs and total costs go up, our profits have gone up that much more because we produced so many cups of lemonade. We sold them for $2 at $500. So we minus our total revenue, minus our total costs. We've made $100. So that was worth it. Seventh worker. Now, this is where we start seeing these. At this point, we've seen increasing marginal product of labor at every time we added a worker. Now we see a decreased marginal product of labor because we've actually gone down. With the seventh worker, we've only added 40 cups. So for whatever reason, maybe this is where we've maximized efficiency. So now maybe it's not quite, adding the seventh worker doesn't provide as much of a benefit by marginal product of labor, but you can still see if you add up all these costs, variable costs, total costs, to our profits, we still make more profit by adding the seventh worker. So even though we've had decreasing marginal product of labor, our profits are still up. So it would definitely still be worth it to hire that seventh person. If we hire our eighth person, then we start seeing a big drop off. And you can think about why this is. At 6 weeks, we seem to have been really efficient. At 7, we produce a little bit less marginal product of labor between 250 and 90 cups. We only went up 40 cups, but our profit was still there. When we hire eighth worker, we've only made 10 more cups between the 7th and 10th worker, which means our costs have gone up. They've got $20 for the extra worker plus $10 for the cups, so our costs have gone up. We've made a profit, we had $600 in revenue. We made a profit, but our profit's gone down. So we might say, okay, this is where we don't want to hire another worker, right? Even though our marginal product of labor decreased between 6 and 7, our profits still went up. But when we went from 7 to 8, our profits went down. And you think about why that is, but adding that eighth worker, there's just not enough stuff for them to do. Maybe, before we got people stirring and pouring and mixing and taking money and doing all this stuff, but adding this eighth person, there's just not enough for them to do. The product actually went down, and you might say this decreasing amount, they probably were actually just getting in each other's way, maybe fighting over who's going to do what, or maybe this person was distracting other people by talking, so these people weren't as effective as they were before. And then if we added a ninth worker in the scenario, we actually see a negative marginal product of labor. We've actually gone down in how much money we're going to make. How much product of labor we're going to make. We're now negative 50. We've gone from 300 to 250. This ninth person was really distracting, really terrible for business, getting in people's way, talking to them or getting people to goof off, and our profits went down. So you see all those things, increasing and decreasing marginal product of labor, negative product of labor, and by looking at this, we'd say seventh worker, this is where we want to be, our most profitable part. So these are all things you might think of when you're hiring. And I saw this, my personal work experience when I was in high school. I worked at Red Shoe Barn, and we didn't have this many people on the floor. But if we had, say, 3 people on the floor, we're all very efficient in helping customers and selling shoes. But when you added maybe the 4th or 5th, then we started talking about football or goofing off or joking around. So we were less actually efficient than we were than just 3 people. When there's 3 people, we were too busy to talk. When you had the 4th or 5th person, all of a sudden you're talking, goofing off, and we actually served less people. So you have to find that number where you would be to make you the most profitable and the most productive. Last thing to look at with this segment of supply is how do firms know when to shut down. So we saw, if we go back to this, we knew that, back here, if we didn't open, we were going to lose $30 no matter what. So what's the point where we decide that it's worth not opening? So we're going to look at that. How does a firm know when to shut down production? And really what we're looking at is when their fixed and variable costs. We're going to look at fixed and variable costs versus how much they project to make in profit. So we look at a couple scenarios. Scenario A, if you were to open this firm, your fixed costs are $200. No matter what, you're spending $200 whether you open or not. And your variable costs by materials, paying labor, utilities, it's $100. And you expect if you open, you project that you're going to make $400 in revenue. So think about that, $400 in revenue. Your total costs are $300. If you open, you'll make $100 profit. So this is kind of a no-brainer, right? You open, obviously. If you shut down, you lose $200 because you're going to have to pay this no matter what. And if you open, you're going to make money. So obviously you would open in this scenario. So you operate. Look at scenario B. If fixed costs are $500, again, you'll pay that no matter what. Variable costs are $600. So this would be utilities, labor, materials, all that stuff. You project to make $700. Think about, okay, well, our total cost would be $1,100, which is more than what we project to make in revenue. If you open, you're going to lose $400. So if you $1,100 minus 700, you're going to lose $400 if you open. No matter what, you're not making a profit. But if you close, you're going to lose $500 because you're not going to make any revenue, and you're going to have to pay that $500 no matter what. So if you shut down, your fixed cost will be $500. So in this case, even though you're going to lose money if you open, you're still better off opening and losing $400 rather than $500. You'll lose $100 less if you shut down. In scenario C, fixed costs are $600. Variable costs are $800. You're projected to make $700 in revenue. So we think about this. Our total cost is $1,400 if we operate. So we would have 600 plus 800 is $1,400 if we operate. If we open, we're going to lose $700. So it'll be $1,400 minus our revenue is $700. We'd be left with $700 left in costs. We'll lose $700. If we shut down, we'll lose $600. So in this case, it'd be better to shut down. So you're going to pay this no matter what. But if you open, you'll lose $700 because your variable costs are so high. So therefore, you're much better off shutting down. And then the last scenario, if your fixed costs are $500 and your variable costs are $900, and you project to make $800, your total cost would be $900, fixed plus variable. And if you open, you're going to lose $100, right? Your total costs are going to exceed what you expect to make in revenue. If you shut down, though, you're going to lose $500 because you're going to pay that no matter what. So in this case, you would operate, you'd only lose $100 rather than $500 for a complete shutdown. All right, so that's just a real brief overview of section 2 of the supply chapter. So that'll do it for this. Thank you for watching.